Wonderful. Okay, right. So let me just get that out of the way. And then, oh, there for a second. Right, okay, so if I share my screen, that would help, wouldn't it? Okay, so you should now be able to see the screen. And yeah, just want to so welcome to the Data Security Forum for this week. It was actually our 21st Data Security Forum, and each fortnight we cover a different subject. And today I want to make it about the Data Use and Access Act, which is the new Act of Parliament, which is started to come into force for UK businesses. It's the first significant change in UK data law in almost 10 years, because obviously GDPR and the Data Protection Act 2018 were the last things which affected data. And by the end of this session, I hope that you'll understand what it is, why it matters, the key dates, and exactly what you should be doing to prepare. As you know, in shorty, we're a great believer in making things fun, because it's fun, it gets done. If it's a bore, it's a chore. And today's all about adding to that clarity and confidence to get things done. So hopefully I can go on to the next slide. So what we're going to cover today is what is the Data Use and Access Act, the key changes for business, the enforcement timeline, related statutory instrument which came out last week, what this means for UK businesses, a strategic action plan, and then we'll have time for some questions and answers at the end. So what is the DUAA? Well, it is a sweeping piece of legislation which became law in 19th of June 2025 when it received royal assent. But it's not just about privacy, it's about enabling more efficient, secure data sharing while tightening governance. It also replaces the ICO with a new, more corporate-style regulator, which is going to be called the Information Commission. There's somebody used a bit of imagination there. So you take the international the Information Commissioner's office and replace it with the Information Commission. But the big difference there, by the way, is it's going to mean that instead of it being one person, as it is at the moment, who is the Information Commissioner, they will be replaced by a committee, which will be the Information Commission. Personally, as a practitioner in the field, I think this is a positive move, providing they get the right people onto the committee, and providing the committee is not too large. Because my fear is if they make the committee too large, it will actually just become a talking shop and won't actually achieve what it's there to do. But I say that there is some data protection reform coming as well. We'll talk about that. There's going to be this thing called the National Underground Asset Register, which is going to be hopefully going to make sure that people know where different people's cables go, and make sure that that's more controlled than it is now. So hopefully we don't have data outages by people digging through someone else's cable. And it's also going to bring back some smart data schemes, which are going to enable organizations in certain sectors, particularly the medical sector, to share information more easily. And that really has come about post-COVID, because what happened during COVID was you had a number of different silos who were working on solutions, but um, they didn't really integrate together, and so it's felt that there was some wasted time there, and there probably was, in people seeking permission to do different things. So now it's going to be in legislation that different organisations in situations like that, providing obviously they're working as part of the solution to that issue, can exchange data without actually going back to people and seeking consent and so on. And it's, yeah, it should make that more smoothly. Again, though, I think the key is going to be in how it's governed to make sure that people don't misuse that ability. But turning to business, what are the key changes that are going to be there for business? The regulator, the ICO themselves, is going to be given stronger powers. At the moment, if they are conducting an investigation into a data breach and they want to interview you, they can invite you to interview, but you can turn around and say, I'm not going. Or I'm not reporting to you. And there's nothing they can do about that at the moment. I mean, they can note in their report that you refuse to cooperate, but that's all they can do. And with the new powers, which haven't yet come in, they will come in later this year, but they're part of this act, they will be able to compel you to take part in an interview. So a bit like, with HMRC, for example, you can't turn around to the Batman if the Batman wants to interview you under caution and say, I'm not doing it. You have to do it. The same is going to apply with the ICO, and I think again that's a positive move. And they also do have expert panels who are going to review cases, so that hopefully again we get not just more enforcement, because yes, perhaps we do need more enforcement, but actually better understanding of the issues, so that that can then translate into training for other organisations, other people. It introduces a more flexible handling of data subject access requests. It enables business to organisations to seek much more clarity on requests and getting the clock to stop. So at the moment, as it stood until this act came in, then the act said that you had 30 days to provide somebody with the information from the date they made the request. And if you were sending them emails or letters backwards and forwards seeking clarification on what they were asking for, A, they didn't need to provide that clarification, but B, the clock didn't stop ticking. So if they took 3 weeks to respond, then that was a big problem for you, because you then in fact only had 1 week to actually find the information they were looking for. And we know that there were no win, no fee solicitors who were getting people to do just that. They were saying to people, put in a request to an organisation for the information. If they ask you any questions, take your time to reply, but do reply within the 30 days, but only just within the 30 days. And then if they don't provide the information, then by the time the 30 days is up, well, then we can sue them for distress for you and anxiety that it's caused you because you've not had that information. This should put a stop to that, because what the new legislation says is that, let's suppose Joe Soap puts a request into you today for everything you hold about him. You should now, and you should have been doing this anyway, but you should be seeking to verify his identity. So you should be asking to see a piece of photo ID, and typically something that verifies their address, something like a utility bill. And previously, if they took time to send that back, it was your problem because it was still eaten into that 30 days. Now that doesn't happen. The moment that you request that information, the 30-day clock stops. And it doesn't start again until they've provided that information to you. Likewise, you are now within your rights to, if someone writes in and says, I want all the data you hold about me, you're now within your rights to say, sorry, we're not providing everything. What is it specifically you want to know or you want to see? So you can seek clarity on that. And again, each time you seek clarity, the clock stops. So you send a message to them. If they take 3 weeks to respond, that's their problem, not yours. The 30 days doesn't restart until you've get that information back. However, think about that for a moment. It's not all positive, because if you are going to take that approach, then you need something like a CRM or a spreadsheet or some sort of system where you're going to record when you sent that information, request of information out, and at that point, how much of the 30 days had already elapsed. because it's not, you don't get 30 days each time something comes back, it just stops within that 30 days. So the 30 days might become 60 days or 90 days, depending how fast they are at responding. The good news is as well that the government brought this in. As I say, the Act was sent on the 19th of June. The government then passed a secondary piece of legislation, which means that is backdated, which is really unusual in law, but it is backdated to the 1st of January 2024. So if you've got any data subject access requests that you're working on at the moment, then it falls within this regime. The clock now stops. So if you've been waiting for information from somebody and you've been worried about the 30 days, now don't need to worry about 30 days. If they take 6 months to provide the information back to you, that's fine, because the clock has stopped. So that's a real positive. I think that's going to save business a lot of time and money, hopefully. The ICO has undertaken to have greater transparency, so they're going to produce annual performance metrics, they're going to produce enforcement reports. They've started doing this already, and I think, again, it's a step forward because the general feel out there in the public, in the business community as well, really, is that, hey, we don't need to worry about the ICO, they never do anything. Well, in fact, they do quite a lot, but it never gets reported on. And hopefully now this new reporting that's going to be in the open will make that easier and will mean that people are aware of what they're doing and they do see the risk that they're running, that the ICO might investigate them. The other major change is in mandatory complaint handling. At the moment, if you have a data subject who's got a gripe with the way you're handling their data, or that you've not responded to a data subject access request quickly enough, or they think that you're doing things when they haven't given you consent and they believe it needs consent, all these sort of things, at the moment, the data subject typically takes that complaint to the ICO. They contact the ICO either via the website or by post or by phone, and they make a complaint. With the new rules, and this bit is coming into force from the 22nd of August, so only a couple of weeks away, they won't be able to do that anymore. Because if you try as a data subject to take your complaint to the ICO, and the ICO's first question will be, have you got the results of the complaints procedure with the organisation that you're complaining about? And if the answer to that is no, the ICO will say, go away then, and actually go back to the organisation and fulfil their complaints process before we will investigate. Now, this is a purely administrative move. The ICO gets something like 16,000 complaints a month at the moment, and it has a staff of 200 people. And they just can't cope. And so the way they're looking to reduce that number of complaints that they have to look into is by saying each business has to have an internal complaints procedure which the data subject has to complete before they can go to the ICO. For a lot of organisations, though, and I personally raised this with the ICO, the issue is that if you're a small business, you probably haven't got an internal complaints procedure at all, let alone a data handling complaints procedure. And if you're one, and the whole idea surely with any complaints procedure is really you're saying it should be reviewed by someone else. And if you're a one-man business or a two-man business, how are you going to do that? Because you're actually the person who's made the original decision. So it really would be a case, or is going to be a case, of marking your own homework. But nonetheless, that's the situation we find ourselves in. So part of what we're going to be doing is helping our clients to establish this complaint handling process because it's going to need to be there. And I say the government originally said, oh, don't worry, because we didn't give you something like 15, 18 months to bring this in. And then, as we'll go through in a moment, they then issued a statutory instrument saying some of this is coming in on the 22nd of August. Hey ho. And as I said earlier, the other thing is the government reform to the ICO and replacing it with the Information Commission. So the enforcement timeline, when's all this happening? Stage one, as I said, is all about data subject access requests. That came in on the 19th of June, and in fact, as I say, it's now been backdated to January 2024. The next stage comes in on the 20th of August, which is new statutory objectives for the ICO, impact assessment requirements, and AI and copyright reporting duties, and as I say, this complaints procedure, which we were talking about. Stage 3, which is coming in late September to early October 2025, will be about increasing digital verification and changing the ISP's data retention rules for child death investigations. Now, I mean, that's a very small area data, very specialised area data, but it's essentially looking into situations which you might have seen in the media where it's alleged that young people have died because of their exposure to things on social media. And then stage 4 is December 2025, which is going to be about health and adult social care information sharing reforms. And as I say, that's what I was saying about being in the legislation, about health organisations in particular being able to share information more openly. So that's where we're at. And as I say, last week we got this related statutory instrument with a wonderful name of the Data Use and Access Act 2025 Commencement Number 1 Regulations 2025, which was made on 21st of July. It's effective on 20th of August, and as I say, it brings stage 2 provisions into force. It's a switch on for the next set of obligations. I mean, your business needs to be ready this month. And I will freely admit here, or say here, I think it's dreadful that the government has really brought this out with very, very little publicity. And indeed, I know that there is some frustration amongst members of parliament that the government chose to issue this statutory instrument whilst parliament is in recess, which means parliament did not get a chance to debate it at all. And the irony here, and this is not intended to be a political point, but it is ironic, when the Conservative government, previous Conservative government was in power, when that government did this sort of thing, which they did, they slipped out statutory instruments when Parliament was in recess. Labour made a real song and dance about it, saying it was awful, it was a failure of democracy, all these things. And then what are they doing? They're doing exactly the same thing. So yeah, so much for change. But as I say, the important thing is, regardless of whether we like the way it's been brought in or not, it has. So what does this mean you need to do? I think the important thing to say is it's not just about compliance, it's about opportunity. By getting ahead now, you can position your business as being trustworthy and efficient, and a strong compliance posture can be a real competitive edge. So what you need to do is you need to update your complaint handling processes, or I suspect in lots of organisations actually create your complaint handling processes. Prepare for more ICO scrutiny and reporting, because there is going to be more, that's for sure. Review your data subject access handling policy. So does your policy actually say about the clock stopping whilst you're waiting for information? And most people's policies almost certainly don't. So you will need to review that, and if you need help with that, obviously that's one of the things we can help you with. Monitor upcoming enforcement stages. That's something we're going to do, and we will bring changes to you through this output, through the Data Security Forum, and through our newsletter as and when they happen. And as I say, treat changes as a chance to innovate, because I really think they are. And something else which is coming is in fact, more than coming, it's here, but I'm not ready to really go into detail on it yet. I'll probably do that in a few weeks' time, is a certification standard called Protect Plus. And Protect Plus is going to mean that at last there will be something you can put on your website. It'll be a badge you can put on your website to say that you're fully GDPR compliant. And there is going to be an AI component to that too. So if you use AI in your business, again, you'll be able to have Protect Plus AI. And if you work with children, you'll be able to have Protect Plus Children's Code. So actual badges that you can put on your website. I'm pleased to say that we are one of the bodies in the UK who've been authorised to issue those certifications. And so watch out for more on that, because that will be coming out soon. So what's the strategic action plan and what can you do now? Start with an audit, review requests and complaints handling. So have you got any in place at the moment? If you haven't, then you need to get some in place. You need to make sure your policies are updated with the new rules. A very simple one here. Does your privacy policy even refer to the Data Use and Access Act 2025? I would lay £1 on the table for everyone that probably that they don't. So that's one that definitely needs to be updated. But things, as I say, like your data subject access request policy need updating too. So you need to update, adjust your policies for new rules. Training, equip your team with clear processes. Follow the regulator updates, and I say we bring them to you through these fortnightly sessions and through our newsletter. And innovate, explore new opportunities. So if I was doing something today, I'd say start with an audit. Have a look at what you're doing with data right now and what do you need to change. And if you need help with that, of course, then we'd be more than happy to help you. So that's the end of the presentation for this morning. So to wrap up, remember that DUAA is a big shift, but it doesn't have to be daunting. Start with the current changes, plan for the autumn and winter phases, and you'll be in great shape. And Insurance is always, we're here to make that journey straightforward and who knows, maybe even a little enjoyable. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing the screen. And if anyone's got any questions, be more than happy to take your questions.
Thank you. With regards to the definition of a DPO and things, our organisation has gone for not an actual DPO, but like a representative who is in charge of data protection, and then there's me, the compliance officer, who does the donkey work basically for the DPO. Is there any new stipulations about then needing to be a DPO or not a DPO? Because that was up for debate last quarter, but I don't know if they've made a decision on definitions of DPOs and things like that.
No, there's not yet been any update on the definitions. At the moment, it's still the same definition that was in UK GDPR. Because one of the things which the government confused everybody with the Data Use and Access Act, and I think it's a missed opportunity, was rather than using the Data Use and Access Act to replace the Data Protection Act 2018 and UK GDPR and bring it all into one, they said no, 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 no. This new piece of legislation runs alongside the existing legislation. And yet it simplifies things, according to the government. Now, quite how adding a whole new act of parliament to things simplifies things defeats me. But that's what they're saying.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful.
Heather, was that all okay? If you're there? No, maybe Heather's on the call or something. Okay. So if no one's got any more questions, Dorcas, can you stop the recording, please?